Hi, my name's Paul Grogan and welcome to my Games of the Month video log for May 2024. In this video, I'm going to be covering every game that I've played in the month of May 2024, although I am recording this video on May 28th, so it's not going to be quite everything that I've played in May. Anything else that I've yet to play for the rest of this month, I will cover in next month's video. I will be giving you an update on the Patreon campaign, telling you about what's coming up in future and all of the usual stuff. Now, before we start, there is a few things that I wanted to mention. The first of all is congratulations to Claire Rosewarne for winning the contest in the last video log. As you may remember, if you saw last month's, David Velasco, who is an author, has kindly given me, or he's going to give to the winner, a full set of the huge game books. And thank you very much to everybody for entering. I did the draw yesterday and Claire's name came out of the hat. So I've been in contact with you, Claire, and David as well. And again, a big thank you to David for this contribution and congratulations to Claire for winning. There is no contest this month, so just so you know, there isn't anything to win this month. I am doing a little bit of a giveaway at UK Games Expo for my Patreon supporters. But yeah, no giveaway in this video log for this month. Now, before we jump in, there's a couple of things that I did want to mention about all of the games that I've played. First of all, I've already mentioned that it's only going to take you up to yesterday. So the game that I'm going to be playing tonight and the game that I'm going to be playing tomorrow and the game that I'm going to be playing Thursday, they're not going to be mentioned in this video. I'll cover those next time. The other things that I wanted to mention is as I was making this list of games to talk about yesterday, I realised almost every single one of these games is utterly fantastic. I have played so many great games this month, and this is going to be one of those videos where I am going to be gushing about most of the games that I've played, not every single one of them. And I've kind of looked at this and I've thought, Paul, are you just one of those people who just loves playing every single game? And I'm like, well, no, because I often get, part of the work that I do in the background is that I am a consultant for certain games. I don't do that much of it these days, but I do some of it. And I am very, very critical where it needs to be. And I will find fault in things. That's kind of part of my job, is to find fault in things. And I love finding problems and I love reporting on those problems. It's just that this month, so many of the games that I've played, I'm not going to find much fault with because they have been really, really good. I'll try my best, but it's going to be hard to do. So if you're expecting a video where I talk about all of the games that I've played this month, some of them are good, some of them are bad, it's not going to be that. I'll warn you now, most of these games, if not all of them, are really, really good games. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that last month I forgot to mention NetRunner. It was in my list of played games last month, and for some reason, when I was writing the vlog for last month, I missed it off. So let's talk about NetRunner. Now, for those of you that don't know, I used to play NetRunner back in 1996 when the game first came out. The original version of NetRunner, designed by Richard Garfield, published by Wizards of the Coast at the time. I was a huge fan of the game back then. I've still got, believe it or not, some sealed packs that haven't yet been opened that are now, almost 30 years old. They're in the attic somewhere. I don't quite know where they are. I didn't quite get a full set of NetRunner, but I played it a lot. I used to be the official UK tournament coordinator for NetRunner, and I used to run various contests, competitions, the UK Championship and various things like that. When the new version came out, Android NetRunner, I was actually involved in the development a little bit. I mean, not really development. I was on the playtesting team and I would play a few things and I would feed things back. But the playtesting team for that game was pretty huge. But when the new version came out, I got really into it. I actually coordinated the first UK tournament of it, which happened at UK Games Expo. I did that on my own back. That wasn't anything that Fantasy Flight or Asmodee asked me to do. It was something that I wanted to do because I thought the game was fantastic. And I played it a lot for a few years when it came out. But then I realized that I was just starting to fall behind and I didn't have the capability and the time to keep up with what effectively was going to become a lifestyle game. So as much as I enjoyed it, I kind of dropped out and didn't collect the later sets. Now, since then, Fantasy Flight Games have dropped NetRunner, but another company has picked it up, Null Signal Gateway, and they've basically created their own version, which is very clearly NetRunner, but it isn't infringing on any rights or copyright or anything like that because they've basically redesigned all of the cards. They look very, very similar to the original ones, but it is all their own created art, and they have kept the game alive, and that's great. They also offer on their website, because it's a non-profit organisation, that you can actually download the PDFs and you can print out your own cards. or you can send those files to a printer and get them to print out your own cards, or you can actually buy the cards from them. So yeah, it's great to see that the game has been kept alive, and I know a number of people that are huge fans of the game. And finally, Paul Snuggs, local friend of mine who's been on the channel a few times, after me and him have been saying for years we really need to get a game in, we actually did manage to get a game in. So Paul came round for another playthrough, and then we ended up with a bit of time free at the end or before the playthrough, I can't remember, and we did get a couple of games of NetRunner in. I was very surprised that not only the rules of the game came back to me, and even though I wasn't fully familiar with a lot of the new cards in the new set, because they haven't just reprinted old cards, they've actually created new ones, is so much of the actual strategy and the gameplay that came back to me as well. So many little signals like, you know, oh, I've put a piece of ice in front of R&D rather than in headquarters. Well, what does that mean? Well, I've got 3 cards in hand and I used an action to draw a card. Why would I have used an action to draw a card? Is that telling me that I've got agendas in hand and that I'm trying to dilute my hand, or does it mean that I'm trying to divert your attention elsewhere? So many of the layers of NetRunner, of the sort of bluffing game between the players, a lot of that came back to me. Yeah, it was a fantastic game. I want to do more of it. You can play NetRunner online at gintechie.net. So yeah, there's opportunities there. Anyway, that was the end of last month. So moving on to this month, and we're going to start talking about ISS Vanguard. And the reason we're going to start talking about ISS Vanguard is it is the first game that I played in May. I played it on the 1st of May. I've actually played it 3 times this month already, and I'm playing it again tonight. We did miss 1 session because I was too tired. Otherwise, there would have been 5 sessions this month. I can't remember what I've said about ISS Vanguard in the previous month's video logs, but we have been playing it now. We're on chapter 9 tonight, so we've been playing it, you know, pretty much weekly for the last sort of 2.5 months. And I don't want to say it's the best game ever, but it's the best game that I'm playing right now. And it might just top Tainted Grail for my favourite narrative-driven game. I am absolutely loving ISS Vanguard at the moment. Now, without giving any spoilers away, we are playing Chapter 9 tonight. So if you have played through ISS Vanguard at least 7 or 8 sessions, then something fairly major happens in the storyline. And that happened to us a couple of sessions ago. And without giving any spoilers away, it is such a major turning point in the story. Since playing that particular scenario, I've been online and I've read a number of reports from other people that have played that scenario and spoken to a number of individuals that have played that scenario. And it's fair to say that some people after that scenario stopped playing. They stopped playing the game. It was such a major shock, turning point, or whatever, that they got like annoyed with the game or frustrated by the game and stopped playing it, or for whatever reason. Now, I have to admit, when we played that scenario, I was actually in a state of shock. I get really immersed in these games. And it took me a good few days. I mean, I drove home that night and I got home and I was just like, it was shock. And this is a board game. Remember, this is a board game that we're playing for fun. This is not real life whatsoever. But I was experiencing the symptoms of shock. And it took me a good few days afterwards to sort of come back down to earth, as it were, no pun intended. And for a narrative-driven board game to you know, give me those feelings within just a fictional, you know, game that we're playing for fun is fantastic. Anyway, when that particular scenario happened, I probably went through a very similar feeling to what a lot of other players went through, the ones that have stopped playing, which is, this isn't fair, this is frustrating, why have we just lost everything that we've been building up for the past 5 weeks? This game sucks, what's going on? Right. And I can absolutely understand and see why a lot of people would say, let's put this game away, this is nonsense. However, you take a step back from that and you realise, wow, this story that it has told, this has been just incredible. And when I got home, because Vicky's not playing ISS Vanguard with us, and she probably won't ever play it, but on the off chance that one day in the future she decides that she does want to play it, I can't say anything to her about this. So all I could do to summarise it is said, imagine you're watching a TV series called Game of Thrones, and Sean Bean's character is your favourite character, although it's Sean Bean, so it should have been obvious, and they die. And like one of the main characters, or potentially the main character of the story, is killed. What do you do? Do you go, well, that was my favourite character, I thought the entire series was about them, I'm not going to watch it anymore? Or do you go, oh, okay, right, well, this is a bit of a twist. Do you carry on, moving on from there? So yeah, that's the only thing I could do to describe it. Anyway, putting that aside, there's a lot of other stuff that I want to say about ISS Vanguard as well. As I say, loving it. It's my favourite game that I'm playing at the moment. Possibly, probably. And can't wait to play it. And we're playing it again in a few hours' time. But there's some things that I do want to say about ISS Vanguard. For those of you that don't know the game and you're curious about the game, I think one of the reasons why ISS Vanguard has had some of the negative ratings, and I've been reading lots of forums and I've been reading some people's criticisms about the game, is because they're misunderstanding the game. So let's take any other or most other campaign-driven narrative games. They consist of a series of scenarios, and you play a scenario, and you play that scenario, and if you fail that scenario, there's two ways that campaign game can go. If it's a campaign game such as Gloomhaven, then if you fail a scenario, you replay the scenario. That's it. The storyline doesn't continue or anything like that. You just have to, if you don't succeed, you have to replay the scenario. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that as a system because life's too short. I don't have time to play through it. Then you've got other campaign-driven games such as the Arkham Horror LCG, where at the end of a scenario, you get a particular outcome, but no matter what outcome you get, the story continues. Now, it might continue down a different path if you got outcome A than if you got outcome B. And 4 chapters down the line, the fact that you got outcome A in, chapter 1 might come back to haunt you later on. It's a sort of not a fully branching storyline, but it's a storyline that evolves based on your successes or failures between the particular scenarios. That is absolutely fantastic. It takes a lot more work, obviously, but it means that you're still getting a story. You're still getting a great story. And it means that you don't have this, we must succeed every time in order to continue. So I love that in a game. ISS Vanguard is not like that. You don't have, you do have missions, but I think one of the things that people have misunderstood with this game is that they think, I'm going down to a planet to land on that planet. That is a scenario. And we land on that planet and we will be given an objective. And when we have done that objective, we leave that planet, and that's it. That's that scenario done. Tick. ISS Vanguard doesn't work like that. ISS Vanguard is a galaxy where you will be traveling around, you will be exploring, and you may have to revisit the same planet twice. Now, that doesn't mean you're having to replay a scenario because you failed, but it could be that in one particular planet, you might find some doorway covered in strange markings, and you've no idea what the markings are, and you can't do anything about it. And your objective was to go there and maybe find some plants or something like that. And let's say you did that. Let's say you went to the planet and you found some plants and whatever, and you left. And then about 4 or 5 weeks later, when you come across some kind of Rosetta Stone to help you decipher these markings, you might think, right, now we'll go back to that planet with a new objective to open that gateway or doorway or whatever. So yes, you will be revisiting the same planet potentially multiple times in a scenario. And some people seem to have a real hang-up that means, oh my God, I'm going to have to redo stuff. I'm going to have to replay the same scenario again. No, you're not. It's just you're going back to the same location more than once. And you will do that. And I love that part of the game. Again, without giving any spoilers away, there's one particular planet that we went to fairly early on in the campaign where something happened there, which was a surprise, a very big surprise. And it caused us to leave that planet very quickly. But we then had to go back to the planet because what was there, we hadn't managed to achieve the first time we went there because of something that happened. And then when we went back there later, and now going back to the same planet I think it's quite good because you've learned what was on that planet. Okay, so what was the problem on that planet? Well, it was always snowing, right? Well, or always raining. So next time we go back to that planet, let's take an umbrella. Protects you from the rain. Great. I like the fact that it isn't just, you're landing on a planet and it's completely random and you couldn't prepare for it because you didn't know what was there. If you go back to the same place again to do something different, and that's the key point, doing something different, you can actually equip yourselves better based on what you've already learned. Anyway, ISS Vanguard, chapter 9 tonight. I still don't know how many chapters there are going to be in our playthrough. I've heard that a campaign will probably take you about 20 to 25 sessions. We're completionists, so we're probably going to do everything. So maybe we're more than a third of the way through the campaign. I don't know, but absolutely loving it. The story's fantastic, and each individual mission that we play on a planet is really enjoyable and very different. So yeah, that's ISS Vanguard. More next month. Next up is Nucleum. Now, I've played 3 games of Nucleum this month, but they were within a space of 2 days. So I was covering, and this is on the channel now if you want to watch it, I did a live tutorial and playthrough of Nucleum with the new Australia expansion. Now, it's been a while since I've played Nucleum, so what I did is I invited some friends over on the day before, and I played a relearning game of the base game. Just the base game, Nucleum, got the game out, relearned it, replayed it. Right, great. And then on the day of the live stream, I had people over in the afternoon. We played through Nucleum Australia. And then in the evening, we did the live stream. So yeah, that is on the channel if you want to watch it. A live tutorial and playthrough of Nucleum Australia. What do I think of Nucleum? Well, Nucleum is one of my favourite games from last year. I don't know quite exactly where it is in my top 10 games of last year because I haven't actually done my own top 10 games of 2023 yet, if I ever get around to doing it. But Nucleum is very high on that list. I very much enjoy Nucleum, and unlike the popular opinion, and please tell me in the chat, leave me a message in this video if you think the same as me, but the general consensus is that Nucleum is a combination of Brass and Barrage, but a lot of people say I would still prefer to play Brass or Barrage more than Nucleum. Me, no. Barrage is not a game that I ever want to play again. I think it's a very good game. I'm just absolutely terrible at it, and I think it's too harsh and too brutal. And some people like that in games, and that's fine. It doesn't make me any less of a gamer, the fact that I don't like that in games. But I like that a bit in games, but I don't like it in Barrage. Nucleum has a lot more openness and a lot more flexibility, and for me that means it's a much more enjoyable game to play. Brass is still a fantastic game, but still I would prefer to play Nucleum than Brass. So yeah, the common consensus of Nucleum is a lot of people would still prefer to play Brass or Barrage. I'm in the minority, and I want to know how many other people are in this minority with me that I actually prefer to play Nucleum. What does Australia bring to the game? Well, for the full details, I would definitely check out the video. You don't need to watch the whole playthrough. You just need to watch the bit at the start where I talk about what's different in this version of the game. But it's better. It is just a better version of Nucleum. It's a different map, but what they've done is that they have got other ways of generating regular supplies of coal within the game. So I love Nucleum. I think it's a great game, but one of the problems that I always find when I'm playing it, other people don't seem to have this problem, is that once you get to the later game and you're like, okay, I need 10 power to power that building. Well, I can get 7. How am I going to get the rest of it? Oh, well, I could import coal, but the coal's running out, so it's going to be really expensive. Well, I don't have that money. So what they've done with Nucleum Australia is that there are now these coal mines which are on the board themselves. And if you occupy one of those coal mines, it means that every time you generate electricity and every time you perform the energize action, you have 1 coal that's available to you, which you can then convert into electricity. So you've got this additional way to get a default amount of energy. And I really like that in the game. It's not just an easier map. There's all sorts of other changes as well. But I like what they've done with Nucleum Australia. I like the boats. I like the way that you can ship resources around a larger distance, but you can't use them to transport electricity, which makes sense. And yeah, so that's Nucleum Australia, which I think the expansion is out now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the expansion's out. Right, next up. This was a very good week. May the 4th, and as regular viewers of mine will know what I do every year on May the 4th, or thereabouts, is it Star Wars Day at Gaming Rules Headquarters. Rick comes over and we play Star Wars games all day. But this year, May the 4th was on a Saturday. So that opened up the possibilities. Now, my brother-in-law, Malcolm, and his son, my nephew, Alex, huge Star Wars fans. I would argue the fact that they're probably as much of a Star Wars fan as I am. And I invited them over and they said yes. So if you want to see these videos, these are on the channel now. but we basically played Imperial Assault all day. We did one scenario in the morning and we did one scenario in the afternoon. And it was brilliant. And I like Imperial Assault. I haven't played it very much. In fact, I played it, I think the last time I played it, apart from the warm-up game to prepare for that Saturday session, was about 3 years ago, which is on the channel now, which is the last time Rick came over for Star Wars Day. Not the last time, because we've played a couple of other Star Wars related games on other days, but about 3 years ago, I think, for Star Wars Day, we played Imperial Assault. And I remember enjoying it. I remember really enjoying it, but it was after this session and looking through all of the content for this game, it made me appreciate the game more. Now, we played the version where you're using the app, so it's Legends of the Alliance, which was not available when the game first came out. The game is designed as a one versus many game, where one player is playing the Imperials and they're controlling all of the enemy troops. But the Legends of the Alliance app allows you to play it solo or full cooperative, where the app effectively tells you what to do. Now, I've played a number of those games. The one that I've played the most is Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth, which is app-driven and really, really easy. Imperial Assault app is a lot more complicated, to the point where we weren't 100% sure if we were doing it right. In Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth, it's basically this group of orcs is going to move to attack Legolas, or if it can't get to Legolas, it'll attack somebody else. And if it can't attack anybody else, it'll just move. That's it. Nice and simple. The Imperial Assault app gives you this big list of criteria, and it's going to go through that list and it's going to try and do the first one on that list. But it gets 2 actions a turn. So then it'll do the second one on that list. And some of those actions are actually a little bit tricky to interpret how they actually work. But anyway, absolutely loved it. And I don't want to wait until the next Star Wars Day to play Imperial Assault again. Rick's got the game. He's got pretty much everything for the game. And I'd be interested in giving the skirmish mode a go. So if you're an Imperial Assault player, let me know. Have you played the skirmish mode? Is it quite good? I mean, it's a very different. It's not like a campaign game. It's just basically a skirmish game. So you've got points where you buy forces and the other player has points, they buy forces, and it's effectively just a war game. But I liked the system. I liked the way that the line of sight rules work, the movement system. So I'd be keen to try the skirmish mode. Anyway, that is Star Wars Imperial Assault. And this is Paul in the editing room. Just wanted to mention that we actually did food as well. I say we did food, Vicky did food. Vicky spent all morning cooking us Star Wars themed food for this. And here's some pictures of some of the food that she prepared for our lunch break between the two games. Next up, a few days later, Pete and Arthur came over and we did a live tutorial and playthrough of Inventions, Evolution of Ideas. Now, Inventions, Evolution of Ideas is Vital Lacerda's latest game that he's been delivering to backers over the last couple of months. It's another of his super heavy games. And about a month ago, I've released the official how to play video for that game. It's quite long. I can't remember exactly how long it is. I think it was like 45 minutes or 50 minutes or something, because it's a super heavy game. It's really, really complex. But I really liked it. And I wanted also, in addition to the how to play video, I wanted to do a playthrough video. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do for this playthrough video is try to show off what the game would be like for your first game. So I invited Pete and Arthur over, and they hadn't played before. Now, I'm mentioning this specifically because some of the videos that I do, some of the playthrough videos that I do, I make sure that everybody has played the game at least once before, so that the game, is shorter and things like that. For this particular video, and it was a combination of a couple of things, but we were short on time. I wasn't able to fit in a practice session beforehand. But also, I'd made a decision beforehand. I didn't want to fit a practice session in. And I'm still not sure whether that was the right thing or not. But I kind of wanted to say, look, this is two people who've never played this game before. And this is what your first game is very likely to be like. So that video was quite long. I did most of a teach up front because they hadn't played before and they did need all of the rules, or pretty much most of the rules up front. And then they played the game. So it was a 3-player game. It was a long video, but to be honest, 4.5, 5 hours, that is probably how long your first game of Inventions is going to be at 3 players, maybe 4 players, when you're learning the game. I mean, the teach alone was like 45, 50 minutes or something like that. So yeah, I really like Inventions. I spoke about this last month. It's a game that I wasn't expecting to like as much as I do. But like all the Lacerda games, you've got to go through that learning curve. And there are some parts of this game which you are just going to have to get used to. Thankfully, Tools graphic design is all very clear. The player aids are very clear. So you just need to follow through the steps on there. And yeah, as I mentioned last time, although there's a lot of actions in this game and there's a lot of things that chain together, you just need to follow through the steps carefully and you'll be fine. Now, the next day after Inventions, this was a busy start to the month, I got to play Rove over Tabletop Simulator with West from Adax Games. Now, I have covered Rove on the channel and it was a Kickstarter that was running. It might still be running at the time of me recording this video. I think it is. So if you're interested in it, go and check it out. But what I did is I had a game in the afternoon with West who taught me how to play the game over Tabletop Simulator. Then, 2 days after that, Paul Snuggs came over in the afternoon and we did a practice game playing the same scenario. And then in the evening, we did the live playthrough. So this is on the channel now. If you are interested in seeing Rove, me and Paul played through a 2-player scenario of the game. Now, that was a sponsored video, so we didn't give any opinions of the game in that video, but I will now tell you what I think about the game. First of all, anybody looking at Rove is going to get a Gloomhaven vibe from it. And the reasons for that are a few. First of all, it's the same artist, okay? So visually, the characters, the artwork is going to look very similar. Second, the main designers of this game are the people who put together Crimson Scales. Crimson Scales, Crimson Throne, I think it's Crimson Scales. I get mixed up between the Pathfinder game as well, which is a Gloomhaven fan-made expansion that actually made it into reality. So there's a lot of similarities there. And also the graphic design and the card layout. I don't know if it is the same graphic designer, but it looks like the same. And if it's not the same, they've done a very good job of making it look the same. So when you look at it, as I say, from an art point of view and a graphic design point of view, and then when you see the scenario being played out, which is effectively a cooperative tactical combat scenario, you might think, oh, is this just Gloomhaven 2nd edition? It isn't, but there are similarities between the two systems. Now, my thoughts on it, I've got a lot of thoughts on it. I could talk for about an hour about the game, but I'll try and summarize it. First of all, if you are a fan of aforementioned Gloomhaven and games of a similar ilk, which are, 1 to 4 player fantasy cooperative games where it's tactical combat and having to control your character and what they do, and you don't mind it being on the heavier end. I mean, I'm saying it's not just move 3 spaces, roll some dice and deal 4 damage. It's actually quite tricky because you've got your cards, you've got decisions to make, you've got to power up certain other cards. It's a little bit more on the complex side than some of the simpler dungeon crawl style games. If you don't mind that, then that's there. The differences are that it isn't just a complete linear storyline. There are a number of chapters and you can go left or you can go right. And if you go down the right branch, you won't actually do the ones on the left-hand branch. But then the two things meet together later on. But depending on which branch you played, you might play one scenario where a particular faction is on your side fighting with you. Or if you took the other branch, that particular faction might be fighting against you. So different scenario, it's the same scenario, but with a completely different feel to it, depending on which choices you've taken through it. It is still the Gloomhaven style campaign that I mentioned earlier on, in that you play a scenario, and if you don't succeed at that scenario, you are supposed to replay that scenario. I never would. I'd just move on anyway. And when you play each individual scenario, although you have the nice narrative up front, so you get the story, you know what's going on, from my experience with the game, which is, to clarify, I have played one scenario. I've played it 3 times, but I have played only one scenario, is that it is effectively the same as Gloomhaven. It's a tactical combat scenario. And the reason why I'm calling this out, not as a bad thing, I'm just highlighting it, is because you have other games out there, such as Agamonia and ISS Vanguard, where when you're playing a particular scenario, it isn't just fighting the bad guys. There's other stuff going on as well. You're having to climb cliffs, pick locks, talk to people, negotiate, do that, all sorts of different things. Each scenario of Agamonia and ISS Vanguard feels to me like an actual role-playing game adventure where you're doing lots of different things. Whereas your Gloomhavens and your Roves it's a tactical combat game where you are playing your cards to try and defeat the enemy, or you're trying to escort somebody from A to B. There's going to be lots of different goals, lots of different scenarios, but effectively they are tactical combat scenarios. And I say nothing wrong with that. I'm just leaning towards a preference for the first ones. In terms of the combat and the way that it works, there are two things about it which I prefer to Gloomhaven, which is probably what you all want to know. And the first one is you don't have to plan your cards. Now, a big part of Gloomhaven is at the start of the round, you have to choose from your hand which two cards you're going to play. It's the fundamental game mechanism that's in the game, and I don't mind it, but, and I can understand why it's there from a design point of view, that you don't have full control, if you don't know what's going on, and you have to do things, and sometimes it might not work out. I totally get that, and I've played dozens and dozens of scenarios of Gloomhaven and love the game. But I don't like it when you choose your two cards, and then you reveal the cards and, you're going late on initiative. And that's dead. And, okay, what do I do? I'll just move two. Rove doesn't have that. Rove has the system, which is more common with games like this, is it's like, right, it's your turn. What do you want to do? And at that point, you make the decision. So I much prefer that as a game mechanism. And the other thing in Rove that I definitely prefer is the way that the monsters activate. And for the full details on this, you can check out the video. But essentially, you might have a bit of an idea, well, you have an exact idea of the various things that the enemy might do on its turn, but then you roll a dice to see which one of them it does. But you see in advance what it's likely to do, and it's one of three things, and then the dice is either a 1-1-1, a 2-2, or a 3. So there's a 50% chance that it'll do option 1, a 33% chance it will do option 2, and only a 16% chance that it'll do option 3. And the bit that I like about it, not just that, is you don't get to see what the monsters are going to do at the start of the round. Again, comparing it to Gloomhaven, one of the fundamental mechanisms of Gloomhaven is at the start of the round, everybody chooses their two cards in secret, then everybody reveals their two cards, and you reveal what the enemy is going to do. So at the start of the round, before anybody's done anything, you know exactly what the enemy is going to do on its turn, and you can plan for that. And that is the game. The game is a puzzle about, okay, so we know that they are going to move and they are going to shoot. Right, okay, so let's take that into account. From a realistic point of view, you shouldn't know what the enemy is going to do until it's the enemy's turn. So I actually prefer that in Rove, is that although you have an idea of what the enemy might do, you don't actually determine what the enemy is going to do until it's the enemy's turn. Which, as I say, it's a very different feel to the game. But I like the way that the game plays. I like the way that the cards play. I love the card play mechanism. I love the fact that you have to play certain cards to give you this stuff that then powers up other cards. And the game allows you the opportunity to do these incredible moves if you manage to time things right and spend the right stuff at the right time. And we only saw scenario 1. So yeah, we didn't see the character evolution. We didn't see the character progression. We didn't see buying new items from the shop or anything like that. This is a game which I am looking forward to getting. I don't know when it's going to be delivered, probably middle of next year or something like that. But I am looking forward to it. And again, if you want to know more about that, I have done a playthrough of it, which is on the channel now. Right, moving on. Have I gushed enough about all of these games that I've played so far? No. This next game that I'm going to talk about is my current favourite game of the year. Now, my favourite game of the year prior to 2 weeks ago was a game called Galactic Cruise, which I think is utterly fantastic, and I am actually going to be playing it a lot more. Well, I'm going to be demoing it a lot over the next week. I'm not going to be playing it, but Galactic Cruise, since the first time I played it back at the start of this year, I think, I was like, okay, this is my game of this year, and it's going to take something special to knock this off the top spot. And I can say to you right now that Civolution, the new Stefan Feld game that is coming out from Deep Print Games at Essenspiel this year, is my current game of the year. And it's going to take a gigantic, amazing game to beat it, because Civolution is ticking all of my boxes. I'm very lucky to have been sent an early access copy of the game. The game is finished. The version of the game I've got is a pre-production copy, which is missing some of the artwork on some of the boxes and things like that. But the game itself is done. And I've mentioned already that this is a Stefan Feld game, but this is way heavier than any other Stefan Feld game that I have ever played. And I have played probably more games of his than any other designer. I've probably played 20 different Stefan Feld games, I'm not sure. But this one is more complex by a large margin. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say it is at least twice as complex as any other Feld game that I've played. That's just my gut reaction. It may be 3 times more complex. I don't know. But it's a civilization style game. I love civilization style games, right? I generally love Stefan Feld games. It is a Stefan Feld game, but parts of it definitely feel like a Stefan Feld game and parts of it don't feel like a Stefan Feld game. I don't mean that in a bad way. It was surprising. Certain things in the game, I was a bit surprised, but it's just amazing. And I can't, I'm drooling at the thought of playing it again. Let's tell you a little bit about it. It's a 1 to 4 player civilization style game where you are actually in the future and you are doing an exam on creating civilizations. And it's effectively a computer simulation where your player board is a computer console and you are directing the actions of your civilization. And you're trying to get the most points at the end of it. Game plays over 4 ages. You are going to be procreating to get more people. You're going to be migrating your tribes on the board. You're going to be exploring different sites. You're going to be researching to get cards. You're going to be playing cards, which represents different inventions and all sorts of different things that you can do. It's got pretty much all of the elements of a civilization style game, but it doesn't have much player conflict. I've not seen any player conflict in the game other than whenever you move a tribe into an area, you could displace somebody else's tribe in order to claim the points of their space. And doing that gives you a penalty because you become tired, and it gives them a penalty because they get pushed out of the encampment and into the wilderness, which means they have to spend more food to feed their people. That's all I've seen in the game. I don't know whether there is anything else in the game because there's dozens and dozens of cards in this game, and there might be one of the cards which is like a warfare card, which means when you push somebody out, they're removed from the board. I doubt it because that would be quite severe. So yeah, don't expect a big civilization style game where players are going to be attacking each other or declaring war on each other or anything like that. It isn't like that whatsoever. Now, I did mention that it is more complex than any of the games, and it is a very complex game, but it flows so nicely when you play it, and all of the things in the game make sense. There's a lot of rules, there's a lot of icons, there's a lot of things to do, but the iconography is very, very good, and everything in the game when you're doing it just makes sense. So it feels, dare I say it, more thematic than most general Stefan Feld games. The other surprising thing is the length of play. We played a full 4-player game the other day with a teach in 3.5 hours. So you are looking, once you know the game, you're looking at probably 2.5 to 3 hours for a full player game of it. I'm going to put some pictures on screen now just of this is the player board for the game, and this is what the main board will look like. There will be some videos for this coming to my channel, but because I am doing some professional work on this, the video that I create is going to be a sponsored video. I am really only allowed to do it at the time when they want me to do it. So I'm in discussions with them about, and I want to make sure that everything I do for this game, I get full approval for beforehand. Anyway, that is Civolution. I have played it, a learning game of it, where we played a third of a game. And thank you to those people who joined me that night for playing that, which was Marcus, Simon and Chris. Then I've played a full 4-player game of it, and I've also played 2 solo games of it using my own solo mode that I created. Now, there is a solo mode included in the game, but I have also created my own solo mode for the game, which isn't really a proper game. It's basically just play the game without anybody else and just do stuff, and don't bother with the bot. So, you know, and it works absolutely fine. And I've played 2 games of that. So that's Civolution. Wow. Right, moving on. I finally got back to the table 20 strong. So over the last sort of couple of months, I've been doing a solo playthrough series of games. I did 5 of them in total. It started with, let's see if I can remember them. I've done Feast for Odin, Norwegians. I've done Maracaibo. No, not Maracaibo, but Great Western Trail, New Zealand. I've done Concordia, which I'll talk about in a minute. 20 Strong. There was another one. I can't remember. It'll come back to me later. But anyway, I've done a series of solo playthroughs. And one of the ones that was voted on by my Patreon supporters was 20 Strong Hoplomachus. So 20 Strong is a card stroke dice game from Chip Theory Games. And it contained, when I got the first set of it, 3 different packs. Solar Sentinels, Hoplomachus Victorum, and 2 Mini Bones. They have created essentially the 20 Strong system. And then you buy these packs, and the packs just come with cards and not the dice, and they allow you to use the 20 Strong game system, but in a totally different setting. So I have played Solar Sentinels, and there is a playthrough of that on the channel if you're interested, and I have now played Hoplomachus Victorum. I am a fan of Hoplomachus Victorum. I like the game, and I did enjoy this game. I'm not going to rave about it as much as all of the other ones that I did, but I did enjoy it. I do enjoy the 20 Strong system. It is a solo game only, and I liked the way that they have managed to sort of recreate the entire Hoplomachus Victorum experience, sort of condense it down to a dice game that plays in about an hour and a quarter. I don't know. I mean, I was live streaming it and I was learning as I was going, so my video was about an hour and a half long, but it felt very different to Solar Sentinels, even though it's the same core system. So yeah, that's on the channel now. If you're interested in that, that's 20 Strong Hoplomachus Victorum. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about it other than I did enjoy the game, but the last boss battle, something happened, and I think it was just a combination of circumstances. And again, if you want to know more, just zip to the end of the video and you'll see what happened. But I got to this particular point in the video, in the playthrough, where it was like, right, okay, I'm at the end now. It's basically, I've got a few turns left and all I need to do is roll this. And if I succeed, I win. And if I don't, I fail. And you might think, well, that's a bit rubbish, isn't it? But everything led me to that point. And basically, I just worked out at the end, oh, right, here we go. I've got it. It's this close. I've now got to roll this on a few dice. But yeah, it was a really good sort of challenge and a really good experience. And there's customizable difficulty levels. And there's 6 different heroes you can play and 9 different things you can play against. So it's going to be different every time. I played against the Hydra. And another thing that I liked about the game is that the longer the game goes on, the enemy is building up these cards so that when you do eventually fight it, it's stronger the more cards it's got. And that is representative of the actual board game, Hoplomachus Victorum, where every time you take a rest, the enemy sign gets stronger. So you can't hang around. You've got to keep up the pace. Anyway, I was fighting against the Hydra, and the way that the special rules for the Hydra worked is that these cards were effectively extra heads that the Hydra had. So I had to keep chopping off these heads, and then new ones would grow back, and I'd chop them off, and eventually I'd got rid of all of the heads, and then I could fight the big boss at the end. So I'm really keen to play it again. It's just a matter of time. Next up, on the 18th of May, I did a full 4-player cooperative playthrough of Maracaibo. Now, Maracaibo has previously been in my top 10 games of all time. So suffice it to say, this is another game that I absolutely love. And I'm playing a lot of Maracaibo at the moment. Combination of the digital app, Board Game Arena, and the physical game. And one reason why I think it just dropped out of my top 10, but then came back into my top 10, is the expansion for Maracaibo, which was Maracaibo Uprising, introduced a whole new way to play the game. It had all of these different modules, and it had a cooperative version of the game. Now, I'm of the opinion that the cooperative version of Maracaibo works very well. I know some people don't think it works very well, but I think it worked fantastic. And being able to take a game, a heavy Euro competitive game like Maracaibo, and create a cooperative mode for it that actually is 95% still playing Maracaibo, just in a different way, was really good. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And we played the particular scenario, which I've never played before, where we are trying to find Lusa, the freedom fighter. And once we found her, we had to then rescue her. I think we ended up paying the bounty for her or something like that. But the way that the cooperative game works is that you have this goal. we had to find the freedom fighter and free her. We also had to liberate all of the villages and towns that had been taken over by the French, the English, and the Spanish. We had to liberate all of those. And all of us had to score more points than the automated opponent. And we had to achieve all of those things at the end of the game to win the scenario. And we just about scraped through. I didn't think we were going to, but we did near the end. So yeah, Maracaibo. If you've played Maracaibo on the various different modules and different modes of play, let me know, because I think the base game of Maracaibo is excellent. But yeah, the reason why I think it is still in my top 10 is that you have all of these different ways you can now play it. And the solo mode really good as well. Concordia solo is the next thing. So on the 21st of May, and this is also on the channel, I did a solo playthrough of Concordia. And yeah, I mean, here we go again. I'm just going to gush about this because Concordia is an amazing game. Concordia is one of my favourite games. I don't play it enough. It's just such a smooth, elegant experience. And I know some people don't like it. Those people are wrong. But the solo mode is also really, really good. And I remember I had covered this before a couple of years ago. And I remember finding it a little bit fiddly and a little bit confusing as to what the automated opponent would do and where they would build. Anyway, this time I didn't experience any such problems. I felt maybe I remembered it from 2 years ago, very doubtful, or I just had a better night's sleep. I don't know, but yeah, the solo mode for Concordia is really, really good. And if you are interested in playing Concordia solo, then definitely get the Solitaria expansion. And the fact that they've made it so generic that you can play with any of the maps and it still works. And they've got all sorts of special rules for playing with different maps. Great. The other thing that the Concordia Solitaria expansion added was a way of playing that as an automated opponent if you're playing a multiplayer game. So you can add it on as an extra third player. And you can also use it in a team mode as well, which I've not played yet. But I know there is a team mode for Concordia, which I've not played. And I think you can play the team mode against the Automa. So it's just brilliant what they've done with that expansion. They've really opened up the game. During that playthrough, I enjoyed it so much, and it reminded me how good a game Concordia was and how I've got all of these different maps for Concordia. And some of these maps I've not played. That I came up with the idea of having a Concordia marathon, where we basically play Concordia all day. Like, we do 4 live streams of it, and we use maps maybe voted on by Patreon supporters or something like that. It's on my list of things to do. I don't know when I'm going to get time to do all of these crazy things. More on that later. But yeah, a Concordia marathon is something that I want to do. Okay, next up, Mother of Frankenstein, Volume 3. So over the last couple of weeks, split over 4 different sessions, we have started, played through, and finished last night Mother of Frankenstein Volume 3. Mother of Frankenstein is a 3-volume series of escape room style puzzle game. It's not an escape room. You're not in a room trying to get out, but the puzzles are very similar to the puzzles that you would get in these escape room style games. But Mother of Frankenstein, and the distributor for Mother of Frankenstein is Arcane Wonders. They're not the original publisher of the game. I think it's Hatch Escapes or something like that. It was a successful Kickstarter from them, and it's designed by people, I think, who create escape room games in America. But Arcane Wonders are the board game publisher of the game. They gave me a copy of this game at Essen last year. And I've already talked about the previous 2 volumes when I played through them. And I can't remember why, but I'd now like to give you my final thoughts on the whole series as a whole, because you can buy them individually. You can buy Volume 1, you can buy Volume 2, you can buy Volume 3. Each one of them is a standalone volume, and you could play Volume 2 without having played Volume 1 if you want to. From a narrative point of view, you probably want to do them in order, because then you are experiencing the story in the order it was written. So right at the start, when we started playing Volume 1, all of the blurb about the game said, don't treat this as a normal puzzle game. This is actually really more of a narrative adventure with some puzzles thrown in. At which point I went, oh, I'm not really interested in that. I just want the puzzles. Now, I like a bit of story, but I don't want the narrative to overwhelm the actual puzzles itself. So for me, The exit puzzles, I'm starting to gradually go off the exit series of games because they are just a series of completely abstract, meaningless, themeless puzzles. I like some of the puzzles. Most of the ones we do are a little bit too easy for us, but the puzzles themselves just feel like an abstract puzzle. I like the Unlock series of adventures because they actually aren't just puzzles. They're actually a story. They're like an adventure that you go on, and I like the way that they work. But I want more puzzles. I don't want pages and pages of narrative. However, when we started playing Volume 1, yes, there is quite a bit of narrative. It's well written, and it sets the scene quite well. But the puzzles were fantastic. And I think I said at the time that the puzzles that we did in Mother of Frankenstein Volume 1 were some of the best puzzles for this style of games that we've ever played. We really, really enjoyed it. And then we played Volume 2. Now, Volume 2 was harder. There was a similar amount of narrative, but the puzzles, we got stuck on a couple of the puzzles, and we needed to use the hint system. Now, I've read forums that say the hint system is really bad. The hint system is not really bad. It's really good. We used the hint system a couple of times and it was really good. So yeah, we enjoyed Volume 2. Then we started Volume 3. Now, this isn't really a spoiler, but Volume 3 starts off building a 3D jigsaw puzzle. There is no puzzle like your normal escape room style puzzles that you have to solve and, oh, how does this work? And line the letters up and A is 7 and this, that, and the other. There's none of that. It's just building a 3D jigsaw puzzle. Now, thankfully, me and Vicky and my dad, we all love jigsaw puzzles. So we enjoyed it because we're building a 3D jigsaw. But I can totally understand how if you don't want that kind of thing, if you want the actual normal puzzles, you might be a bit disappointed by Volume 3. Once we've built that, we then had to put together the roofs. That was the weakest part of Volume 3. So if you haven't played Volume 3 and you get to the point where you're building the roofs and you get frustrated, you're just going to have to move on. The last part of Volume 3 was actual puzzles similar to the puzzles from the other one. So the actual puzzles that made Volume 1 and Volume 2 really good for us, there's not that many of them in Volume 3. But, and I'm really glad that we finished this last night, because otherwise I would have had a different opinion of it. The narrative, as I've mentioned at the start of me talking about this game, I'm not interested in the narrative. It's nice to have as a bit of backstory, but I want the puzzles. I want to play the puzzles of the game. That's the bit that I want. And I accepted the fact that the narrative was well written. But suddenly last night, and I don't know what it was, maybe I was tired or emotional or something like that, but we were reading the final parts of the story last night and it put everything together. Now, bearing in mind, we played Volume 1, I don't know what, 4 or 5 months ago, and then we played Volume 2 over Christmas. I can't remember, but basically it's been about 6 months since we started playing, because I think we've played it every time my dad's been to visit. And at the end of it, I was like, this was great. This was really, really good. And the story was actually really good. And I'm now remembering the overall story. The story was fantastic. And I don't know how much of this story is based on reality or anything else, but the actual overall story of Mary Shelley through these 3 adventures and how it ended was really good. If you have got Mother of Frankenstein and you have been playing it, let me know. Let me know if you've played Volume 1. Let me know if you've finished it. I know that Johannes and Sunniva from Board Gaming Ramblings, they've played through all 3. They have the same thoughts as I have on it. They thought it was really, really good. But yeah, let me know if you've got that. But what I'm saying is, if you've only played 1 and 2, even though 3 was a little bit disappointing with regards to the puzzles, I would definitely recommend doing it. Just don't get frustrated with the roofs because some of them don't work. Right, almost finally, 24th of May, World Wonders Mundo. So World Wonders, one of my favourite games from last year. Easily in my top 10 games of last year. I just love World Wonders. It's so smooth and streamlined. It's got a great table presence. the choices in the game, the gameplay decisions. It's a light game, well, a light to medium game, but it just plays really, really nicely. Something about World Wonders just absolutely clicked for me, and I thought the game was fantastic. It's got an expansion, the Mundo expansion, which is in a little box, and I covered this last week, and there is a live playthrough on the channel. So if you're interested in finding out what the Mundo expansion offers, then definitely check out that video. However, I must issue a formal apology here to Arcane Wonders because we made a mistake at the start of that game. And I feel really bad about this because it was a sponsored video and I completely messed up the start. For some reason, I don't know what it was, but my brain, when I was reading the rulebooks, just went, oh, you can use the Mundo expansion and you can either just shuffle the 9 cards into the main deck and just play as normal, or you can take the new cards and put them as a separate deck, and then you have 2 from the new, 2 of the new wonders and 2 of the old wonders. And I read that and I went, right, that's what we're going to do. And then thankfully, one of my supporters, Graham, was watching and said after the end of round 1, said, shouldn't the Mundo cards have a different back? And I'm like, should they? Oh, let's have a look at the rulebook. And I went back to the rulebook. This is in the middle of the live stream. I went back to the rulebook and it was like, oh, so you can either use the ones with the normal back and shuffle them into the main deck and play as normal, or don't use those cards, use the 9 Mundo cards, is it 9? However many it was, which are totally different cards. And I'm like, oops, sorry. So what we did is we switched them out at the end of round 1. So check out the video, but then zip forward to the end of round 1, start of round 2, where we then replace those cards with the new Mundo cards. So the way that the new Mundo expansion cards work is that they are still wonders and they have a cost to build them. But the interesting thing is they are worth 1 point unless you manage to achieve the condition on the card, in which case they're worth 3 points. So they are a lot more valuable, but you don't just have to build them, you have to build them and then you need to do something else. I like it, but there was a couple of them where I was like, well, that's just an easy 3 points. You've got to build it and then surround it. Well, that seems quite easy to do. Now, as long as everybody knows that going in, you just need to know that these Mundo Wonders could potentially be worth 3 points each. I think I built one of them and I think I managed to get the 3 points for it. But yeah, I love World Wonders. I think it's a great game. And I like the fact that there is a little twist with these new wonders. Right, that's the end of all of the games that I've played, I think, in May, physically, with other people. Next, on Board Game Arena, not much this month. I have played a couple of games of Maracaibo, because I'm actually involved in a Maracaibo tournament at the moment, being organised through my Patreon supporters Slack channel. Thank you very much, Brett, for organising that, as always. I came first in the first game and second in the second game. So maybe I'll come third in the third game. I don't know. But yeah, Maracaibo on Board Game Arena is a fantastic implementation. It's just the base game, but it's great. And I've also played a game of Forest Shuffle, just the base game. Elaine wanted to play Forest Shuffle, even though the expansion is available, and I think the expansion makes it better. Elaine just wanted to play with the base game. So I played that on there. I did win that game. I went with a deer-heavy strategy, just because I drew lots of deer. I didn't manage to get any wolves, because apparently the wolves and deer combo is a bit broken. I didn't manage to get any wolves, but I did manage to get lots of deer. I do like Forest Shuffle, and I have played the physical game a few times. I've got mixed feelings on it. First of all, I do enjoy playing the game. I've played it, I think, twice physically, maybe 3 times, and I've played it about 5 or 6 times on Board Game Arena. So I'm probably about 10 games into Forest Shuffle now. And I do enjoy playing it. Every time I play it, I do enjoy it because I like the core mechanisms of the game. I like the decision points in the game. But like a lot of games like this, with decks of cards which are multi-use or whatever, how much of the game is down to reacting to what you've drawn? Like I've just said, I went with a deer strategy. How did I go with the deer strategy? Did I choose that strategy? No, I didn't choose that strategy. I chose that strategy because I drew cards with deers on them. And thankfully, I managed to draw more cards with deers on them. And If I hadn't have drawn any more cards, that's the tricky thing. And that's the thing with this game and lots of other games like this, is that you are limited in your choice of strategies by the cards that you draw, and you might go down one strategy and not manage to get those cards. However, there are ways in this game that you can mitigate that by picking up cards. You're not just drawing cards blindly from the deck. There is a tableau, there is an offer or whatever it is, and there are ways that you can pick cards up. So it's knowing when to pick, I need that card. I need that card because it's got that colour leaf on it. And that colour leaf is going to allow me to play this card and get the bonus, which is going to allow me to do that. This game, like a lot of other games in this genre mechanically, give you the ability to make clever moves, but they're fairly simple clever moves. It's like, I'm going to play this, and if I now play this, that's going to score me 15 points. Yay, I feel clever because I've managed to combo these things together. I've managed to combo those things together mainly because I just drew lots of cards and managed to pick things up. But yeah, as I say, Forest Shuffle is a game that I enjoy playing. I'll probably never say no to a game of it. And it's implemented on Board Game Arena and it plays really nicely. And I think Forest Shuffle is a game which is here to stay. And I know we're going to get another expansion coming out this Essen. And I'm hopefully going to be covering that on the channel as well. Right, that's it. So let's talk about UK Games Expo, where I am off to on Thursday. So I need to pack my bags, and on Thursday morning or Thursday lunchtime, I'm going to leave for UK Games Expo. Let's talk about what I am doing at UK Games Expo. I'm going to be demoing Galactic Cruise for Dranda Games in the morning. So each morning, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to be demoing Galactic Cruise for Dranda Games. I've got various slots available, and people have got the opportunity to book spaces in those slots. And then I finish at about 1-ish, 1:30, I think, I can't remember. And Will is taking over from me in the afternoon. So they've got one table running demos of Galactic Cruise all weekend. I'm in the morning, Will's in the afternoon. If you do want to get a demo game of Galactic Cruise and you aren't able to get a demo with me because all of my slots are booked, then I will tell you this now. Will is not booking slots in the afternoon. It is a just turn up and play. You will have to fight off other people to get a space at the table. But yeah, so yeah, if you want a demo of Galactic Cruise from Dranda Games over the weekend and you're not able to get one with me, then Will is either as good a demoer as me or a better demoer than me. So yeah, you're going to get a fantastic demo from Will if you can't get one from me. And as I say, he's not booking any slots. You just need to turn up and try and get one for there. I also have demo games booked in for Luthia from Pavison Games, New World Order from Hegemonic Games, and Rebirth from Mighty Boards. These are all games that I am going to be covering on the channel at some point in the next couple of months. In fact, Rebirth, I'm going to be covering it 2 days after Expo. And I am going there to see these games for the first time, to be taught these games, to learn these games. And in the case of Rebirth, presumably bring a prototype home with me because I need to cover it 2 days later on the channel. But Luthia is going to be covered in the middle of July. New World Order, I think, is going to be covered in October because they're running a Kickstarter, I think, at the end of October for that. Also, I am going to be getting to play Civolution. I am taking my copy with me of Civolution, and I am going to be playing that on Thursday evening. Well, I'm not going to be playing that. I'm going to be running a demo of that on Thursday evening. And I'm going to get a chance to play Black Forest. Because my contact at Fuhrlandspiele Games is coming over. They don't have a booth, but he's bringing over a copy of Black Forest, and he's happy to teach me how to play. So that's happening on Friday night, which I'm very much looking forward to. And also, if you are at UK Games Expo and you want to come and see me and do something fun, 3 p.m. on the Saturday, I will put a picture on screen now. This is happening at the Game Toppers booth. It's going to be some fun event that Kevin was telling me all about last night while I was falling asleep. So I didn't fully understand it, but you can come along, you can join in, win prizes, all sorts of things. And I'm going to be there at 3 o'clock on the Saturday. That's UK Games Expo. It's going to go by in an absolute blur. And if you are one of my Patreon supporters, you should have got a message that I sent out over the weekend about where I'm going to be in the evenings, if you want to come and say hello and things like that. Next week, so on Tuesday, the 4th of June, this is just after I've got back from UK Games Expo, I am doing a live interview with David Turtsey about the new Star Trek themed game that's coming from WizKids. I can't say too much about it because I know all about it, but I can't remember what information has been put out there about this game already, and I'm going to be very careful about what I say until that day. So on that day, 2 o'clock, set your alarm clocks, Tuesday, the 4th of June, 2 p.m. UK time, live interview with David Turtsey, where we are going to be talking about it. And this is an exclusive. WizKids have basically given me this because of my relationship with them. And I've known David for years and David's relationship with them. And we've convinced them to allow us to really be giving the first information about this game, similar to what I did for the Mage Knight expansion. But this is going to be pretty big. So that's happening. Then on the very same day, straight after that interview has finished, 2 friends come over and we're going to be playing Rebirth from Mighty Boards. I've got an exclusive look at the island map. So a lot of content creators have already covered Rebirth, but Mighty Boards are basically said, Paul, do you want an exclusive look at the island map? So that's happening Tuesday, the 4th of June, 5 o'clock in the evening is we're going to be doing that. Then on the Thursday of that week, I'm going to be playing some more Skytear Horde. There's a new expansion coming from Skytear Horde. So the designer has been in contact with me and said, Paul, I know you've already covered this on the channel, but you said you liked the game. So if you did like the game and you want to cover it again, we need some extra support in promoting it. And I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I did really like the game. So I'm going to be covering Skytear Horde on the Thursday. And then on the Friday, I'm going to be covering Pillars of Heracles. Now, this is going to be very special because Tom Heath is coming over to stay. And Tom knows Pillars of Heracles, so he's going to be doing the teach. So the video is going to be live on my channel on the Friday night. This is the 4th, 5th, 6th. This is the 7th of June. Rachel's coming over as well. So Tom and Rachel are coming to stay, and Tom's going to be doing the teach. The 3 of us are going to be playing Pillars of Heracles, but Tom's going to be handling the teach. I don't know how to play the game. I hope Tom's bringing his copy with him. Then on the Saturday, they're actually staying over for the night, and we're going to be doing some more stuff on the Saturday. I don't know what yet, but watch this space. It may be Patreon only, it may be public, I don't quite know. But Tom and Rachel are staying over for the night, and then we're going to be doing more videos, more games on the Saturday. The week after, I'm going to be covering a game called A Wayfarer's Tale, The Journey Begins. This is a game from James Emerson, the designer of Tranquility, which I have covered in the past. James reached out to me and said that A Wayfarer's Tale has already been, that's a game that he did a couple of years ago, but there's a new big box version of the game coming to Kickstarter in end of July, I think, or middle of July. Anyway, he wants me to cover it. I looked at the game, and I'm trying to take on less work at the moment, but I looked at the game and I was like, this looks really good. So yes, absolutely. And James is a UK designer. So yeah, I'm going to be covering that. And then on the Friday of that week, the next board and dice game, which is The Reef Project, which I don't know much about yet, but I have had a quick look through the box and it looks great. It's got fishes in it. So yeah, The Reef Project, which I think Board and Dice are going to be demoing at UK Games Expo, if you're interested. But I'm going to be covering that in May. Then, the week after that, I'm covering Mage Knight again. It's been a long time since I've played Mage Knight, but I have a practice game in the afternoon where 2 friends of mine are coming over, and they are going to help me relearn the game. And you might be laughing, thinking, well, Paul, you surely know how to play Mage Knight? I've not played it in a while, and I've played lots of other games since. So I'm having a practice game in the afternoon. That will be live streamed for Patreon supporters, because it will be very rough. But in the evening, now this is exciting, but also a bit nervous. 3 of the team from the Whose Turn Is It Anyway podcast are coming over, and I'm teaching them how to play Mage Knight. None of them have played it before, and I am going to be teaching the 3 of them. We're going to be playing through the walkthrough scenario, and I'm going to be doing a rolling teach as per the walkthrough scenario, how it plays. And I'm nervous about it because I want them all to like it, but I know that there are certain people out there in the world, there's a few of them left who don't like Mage Knight, and I'll accept that. If they don't like it, I'm sure they'll have a very good reason for it, but I'm hoping that they love it. So yeah, really looking forward to that. And at the end of the month, I'm covering Rise of Babel, which I don't know much about, but the prototype has arrived, so I'll be looking into that. In the background, in May, now that the Ezra and Nehemiah video is done, I'm going to be starting work on the Unconscious Mind videos. Now, Unconscious Mind is a game from Fantasia Games, who published Endless Winter. I worked with them on that. I'm working with them on Unconscious Mind as well. The pre-production copy is due to arrive with me sometime in June. And basically, in amongst all of this other work, I will be working on the script for that and then starting to film. I am going to be doing a full how to play video for the base game. And then probably in end of July, I'm going to be doing a playthrough video of the base game and a playthrough video with the expansion. So yeah, that's more for July, but I will be starting work on that in June. Whew. Right. Let's give you a Patreon update. So it's been a bit of a weird month because normally, and this has been the case now for at least the last year, but I get about 25 to 30 new people a month and I lose about 25 to 30 people, or maybe a few less. Gradually, the Patreon is slowly increasing by a few people each month. It's fine. It's going really well. I'm really happy with it. But this month, I've lost about 15. Well, I've gained 15 people and I've lost 16 people. And what's unusual is not the fact that I've lost net one person, is the fact that it's 15 people instead of 25 to 30. It's just something that struck me as unusual. Now, of course, over the next 2 days, 10 people might join and 10 people might leave. That might be what happens. I don't know. Either way, the Patreon support, as I say, is still amazing, and it's basically helping me do a lot of what I do, because I'm still trying to maintain that 50-50 balance. And sometimes I don't, sometimes I do. But a lot of the videos that I create are sponsored and paid for, and a lot of the videos I create are not sponsored and not paid for. And the Patreon is effectively funding all of the non-sponsored playthroughs. And there's going to be a lot more of those coming up. On screen now is a list of everybody who has started supporting me in May 2024. Now, if you do start supporting me on Patreon before the end of the month, then I will make sure your name appears in the next month's video, because, yeah, this video is being done on the 28th of May. So, yeah, big thank you to all of you for supporting me, and a big thank you to everybody who has been sticking with me as a Patreon supporter. Other things, let's just wrap things up and tell you about some other things that are going on. The first one is we are having some building work going on in the house. It's fairly major building work that we're having done. I was going to apologise for the banging noises, but I've closed all of the doors and hopefully you haven't heard any banging throughout this video. But it has impacted on our lives in a number of ways. First of all, we have had to spend quite a lot of time doing a lot of house stuff, like moving things out of the garage, demolishing the shed, and all sorts of things like that. So mine and Vicky's time has been limited over the last few weeks, which is why we haven't played Tainted Grail Kings of Ruin in over a month. And that makes us both very sad, because we both love the game, we both want to play the game more, and we just haven't been able to because we've had other life stuff going on. Also, my dad has been visiting us for the last 2 weeks now. With my dad being here, Tainted Grail is not the kind of game that we could get him involved in. We've been getting him involved in Mother of Frankenstein and other games as well, but not that. So, yeah, we've had less time to ourselves, and we've just been really tired. So we've been trying to get to bed at like 9:30, 10 o'clock. It's not been working. I've still been exhausted every day. But yeah, that's going on at the moment, and that will continue to be going on for at least another 2 months, probably 3 months. And yeah, we'll see how that works out. Also, painting. So the little time that I have had, I've been doing a bit of painting, and I've been really happy with what I've been painting recently. So on screen now are some Chaos Space Marines from Blackstone Fortress. These are not quite finished, but they are almost finished. I'm really happy with these. I've never painted a Space Marine before, I don't think, in my life. The miniatures are gorgeous. They're really, really detailed. Also, this is the Chaos Lord. This, again, isn't quite finished, but it's almost there. I did about another 2.5 hours on this yesterday whilst watching a bit of TV last night. And I'm really happy with this, to the point where this might be the best miniature that I've ever painted. I'm really happy with it. But about 10 hours has gone into this so far. And I also painted some Urguls, also from Blackstone Fortress. These were a lot easier to paint. And as you can see, I've not finished the bases yet on these whatsoever. But yeah, these came out really nice. But yeah, much easier to paint than the previous ones. And this is another of the characters that you can play from Blackstone Fortress. I'm really happy with how this one came out as well. Again, I spent a lot of time on this one, but really happy with the end result. So I'm still doing a bit of painting in front of TV, which is nice because it's something that I do enjoy doing. And yeah, the only other thing that I did want to mention is that I remember a time when I was recording these video logs and I was talking about my personal life and my personal mental health situation and things like that as being quite difficult. And I just wanted to say that at the moment, things are generally okay. Occasionally I will have a bad day. I woke up yesterday morning, for example, with a massive amount of stress and anxiety. But overall, in the grand scheme of things are manageable and things are almost okay. And that feels good. And I think a lot of that has been down to a number of contributing factors. We've had a lot of stressful things going on. The fact that the building work is going on and is fairly major, that caused some problems. The fact that my dad's been staying with us has, caused some problems. But I've played some amazing games over the last month, and playing games makes me happy. And I've played some really, really fantastic games. Also, I have been trying for the last 3-4 years to cut down my workload. And I have never really felt like I've been able to do so. Every time I've tried to cut it down, something else has occurred that meant, I'm now more behind and I've now got to work the weekend or anything like that. Right now, I think for possibly one of the very few times for the last few years, I actually feel like I'm on top of things. If I can get this video log filmed today and edited today or tomorrow morning, then we're okay. Everything is generally under control. I have some more work planned. I mean, I'm looking at the list of things that I've got planned. It's a lot. But remember, this is my job. This is my full-time job. I'm actually planning on taking most of the Monday after Expo off. This week, for example, right? I released the Ezra and Nehemiah video on Monday, but it was all done. That was just a case of making it live. I am doing no paid work this week. So Monday was a bank holiday in the UK. I made the video live. Today is Tuesday. I'm filming the vlog. This isn't paid for. This isn't sponsored in any way. I'm not getting any money from this video. Tonight, I'll be playing ISS Vanguard. That's not sponsored. Tomorrow, I'm going to be finishing editing this vlog. Kevin and Barry are coming over. I didn't mention this, but Kevin and Barry, Kevin from Game Toppers and Barry from the Badger and Birkin Badger podcast, they're coming over to stay. We're going to be playing War of the Ring tomorrow night. That's not sponsored. More content on the channel that's not sponsored. I forgot to mention that because that video will have actually been on the channel already before this video goes live. So that's kind of why I didn't mention it. Then on Thursday, I'm at UK Games Expo. And yes, I'm working for NetRunner Games there, but, it's all sort of, it's not really paid for work is what I'm trying to say. So this week, I'm not actually doing any work that's been paid for. And I kind of feel on top of things and that everything's looking good. I'm also looking forward to the future. I'm looking forward to all of the games that I've got planned for the next month. I'm looking forward to working on the Unconscious Mind video, and I'm looking forward to my birthday week in July. I'll talk about this more in the vlog at the end of June, but I'm taking the first week in July off work, and I'm going to be live streaming games all day, every day, because it's my birthday, and that's what I want to do, and none of those will be sponsored. And bringing things back to the Patreon support, that's what makes it possible. The Patreon support that I get, the financial contributions that my supporters make, basically allows me to live the life that I am living. And I can't thank you enough for that, because there are highs and there are lows, but yeah, it's great. So thank you very much to everybody for supporting me. And if you're not a Patreon supporter, but you are watching these videos and you leave me comments, I love that too. I get the dopamine hit every time you leave me a comment, every time you tell me what you think. It's always good. So thank you very much to everybody for your support. I will see some of you at UK Games Expo, and I will see some of you online. Until next time, take care, and thanks for watching.